Hi, welcome back to Zion Messages. I'm glad you're here. If you're just clicking on this for the first time, my name's Laura. It's good to talk with you and have you spend time with me today. Thank you. So I usually start out with talking about just a kind of a bullet point list of what I'm going to talk about, and then I go into it. And I want to apologize for taking a long break. I feel a little bit reprimanded that I should have said a few things, but I haven't, and now I am. So I just know that we need to share our testimony and our heart online in some shape or form in order to bring others closer to Christ. And it's important to share that light. And I just didn't very well for a little while there. And I, as some of you were knowing, I was kind of going through some stuff, but things are getting a little bit better. And I'm grateful. It is another day to be happy and feeling well. And I'm very grateful for that. So first, I think I'm just going to give you a little, like a little look on my property and the homestead we're on. We live on about 4 acres of land here, and I'm very grateful. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, and just a few things we're doing. I feel like summer months, people think, yeah, you can get things done, but honestly, we don't get a lot done in the summer. It's usually in the fall because summer we're doing things with the kids or they're home, and so we have to give more time to them, go on trips. So I'll give you a little show of what we're doing. And then I wanted to talk about how love has filled my heart and what that has felt like for me and reasons why. I want to talk about culture and I guess just I've talked about in the past this idea that it's not normal. And I kind of want to share some more insight. I listened to this thing recently and it's just opened my eyes. And it's true as far as the way our society is today and maybe some reasons for mental health. And I like to talk about that a lot here on this channel, along with all these messages about building Zion. I feel very strongly in this subject. And to prepare for our Savior's second coming, he needs to be ready to come to a people who are like-minded and feel connected and loved by one another. And I also want to talk about that hope with Zion, knowing that we can have that hope. And probably just some stories mixed in there with the temple and some mental health awareness of things. So let's jump in. It's really great when I do have the house to myself a little bit. So the main thing I wanted to do was to put in some cover crop. So watch this. It probably seems like quite a bit. I'll kind of point it out to you. See how we have cleared all of this. Oh, it's so bright. And it even goes back further. All the way back there. So we have cleared all of this. And it is about a 1/4 acre. And we're clearing it so that we can put down some cover crop. And so cover crop is something that you put down in order to, it's just putting down this kind of crop that's going to help the soil. Not necessarily something you're going to harvest, but that you can plant it. It grows for 2-3 months. For some can grow a little faster, so that you're able to break up that soil, put the nitrogen back in, and create better root systems down there that kind of rot and decay in there. And then you can have all that biomass in there to just decompose. So I can help the soil not become so silty, because it is very silty, which is opposite of what it needs. It needs to be loamy. So loamy is what you see with it being very rich and dark, and it like when you hold it, it keeps some of itself, but you don't want it to hold too much of its moisture. That's not good for itself, but it's just a perfect combo. It's like the compost or the potting stuff that you see at the store, but with this stuff, it is silty, being kind of clay-like. So it has all these pieces of so many weeds that were in there. We have the Russian thistle. The tumbleweeds are very, very strong here, and they just grow everywhere. We I feel like with us clearing this, we probably pushed around the seed of it. So it is a big project that maybe I we'll see. I maybe bought off, I bought bite more than I can chew. I can't even talk. But I just felt like I needed to do it, and I wanted to do it, and it's, might as well try, because it's not supposed to be a hard thing. As long as I get it cleared, put the seed down, which the seed wasn't that hard. I bought some seed from a place and I spread it around this whole area, and I need to water it. So that's, I think, the hardest thing of all. So over here is our, when we did this grass, we did a sprinkler system last fall, and that's why I was saying I feel like in the fall we do more of our projects. The last fall it was a really big project, putting in this sod or putting in the sprinkler system, and then we did, as we did that, we were able to save the money and buy some sod, and so that helped. And we put a hose bib out there, as you'll see, as I've pointed out already. And I have these timers, and as you can see, these hoses that are hooking up to these tripods. And tonight is my first, and tomorrow morning are my first rounds of watering. And I'm hoping, having 4 of these tripods around, I can kind of rotate them around and get the seed started growing. I am nervous with how much water I need to get down on it, if I can keep it wet enough to actually have it germinate. We'll see. I don't know. I'm really hoping. I'm really trying. We just had some huge storms that I almost thought, I wish I put it in right before. That would have been a really great, it was like 3 or 4 days straight of storms. That would have been a really good time to like have it germinate itself, but I didn't do it. And maybe some of the seed would have just rolled away anyway. So I wondered, what's the whole plan? God has a plan for me. I'm trying my best, because I really hope to, the reason it seems like a lot, but with this being one big long rectangle, over the years that I hope to do planting here, I can barely look up, it's so bright. A good size orchard right here, this middle area being a garden of all sorts of vegetables that I probably don't use as much, like zucchinis and things like that, like all the fun stuff. But then in the back, I could put just the rows of the stuff we use a lot of, which is corn. I could do probably rows of oats. I could do rows of wheat, tomatoes, onions, and then some boxes where I plant strawberries and some grapevines all along the side. So I know all this can be used, and in some of my own prepper mindset, I've thought, okay, maybe I will be able to use it and help whoever it is, and whatever my family needs in the future. No efforts are wasted. And if this is a lifelong project of being here and living here, if we really do stay here for a long time in our life, I know it won't be wasted. So I'm really grateful for that. So I'm gonna go back inside, and we can talk more about those things I had mentioned. But before I do, I will just point out, maybe at some point in the next couple weeks, I'll show you over here. I'm hoping, as you can see, kind of my other extracurriculars of our chickens and our bunnies and our shed. Where is it? Yep, the shed is back there. That we're gonna get some goats, and I'm excited. It's gonna be really fun to finally do that. Couple of reasons why. I'm hoping to have it to mainly have the fun and to help myself learn. And it's going to be a harder animal compared to bunnies and chickens. And so I know, knowing myself, that I need to chew off a little bit at a time. That phrase I couldn't say earlier. Just couldn't say it. Can't bite off more than I can chew. So at this point, I feel like I'm ready. I'll get this cover crop watered, and it'll do its thing, and then I can put it in a pen. And I actually do have a friend that's wanting to downsize her herd, and she's giving me a screaming deal on her goats. And I'm excited. I'm getting I'm getting these babies too, and a mama. So we'll see how that goes, and I hope it goes well. And I'm hoping to get the ones that do the milking, and that's what will be fun to try my hand at. I don't know exactly how great I'm going to be with it, and of course I could always dry her up after she has babies. I don't know. It's so that brings me to my next point, that I would love the idea of having milk on our homestead if something were to happen, if crap hits the fan, because that would be such an asset to have some milk for a family that we have. Of course, goat milk isn't the the top tier taste buds for our family. From what I'm hearing though, it's very good and it's comparable, and you learn to really love it, especially if you do it right. Like, it really doesn't have that kind of weird taste or smell, and especially with the kind of breed I'm getting or hoping to get. We'll see what all happens here in the next couple weeks if some things change with these plans, but that I can have it for my family. I can barter and trade with it if I need to. It's just great to have assets when you get to a point, or when it happens. I feel like at some point it will happen. I've been clearly had the impression that this will be something that could really help me and my family in the future. That I'm working on my skill set and not being too overwhelmed by it, that I'm doing it in phases, because they say goats are a little harder. That they eat lots of things. They can probably forage better if things were to really happen. They do get sick more often, and I'm surrounded by great people that actually know and want to help, and that's what's great about it, is I don't need to be worried that I'm all by myself with figuring this out. So yeah, let me turn on the light. But as I'll talk about mainly here today, I want to share with you guys mainly my testimony and these stories involved and the things I've had to learn and go through that are difficult. I don't know if you guys are feeling it, and I know a lot of people are feeling it more and more right now. This feeling of heaviness. Whenever things are happening right now, I feel like they just feel heavier, and there's more drama. I feel like I get through something. It's like they say, you get through one contraction and then it's right on to the next, and that's what it is. It's our Savior is being born, and he wants to come to a people that are ready for him. And these labor pains and things that we're going through is part of that process. So jumping right into a story, this idea of being homesick for our Savior, and that's what I wanted to share here today mainly, is this topic that you hopefully can get to a point that you feel so homesick for him. You want him so badly. You want to serve him. He is who you answer to. He is your king, and all these other things, and overcoming the world has finally become easier and easier. And I'm going to say it's easy, but it is simple. And it can get better with time, because you're using his help. And as an example of an actual story with it, talking about panic attacks, right? I'm not sure if you're one that's had one yourself, or if you know someone that has, or if you have something just equivalent, and maybe you have more of the depression or just the chronic anxiety, whatever it is. I shared a long time ago panic attack I had, and then the one recently. So a while back, and it really is just a meltdown, right? For an adult to really truly have a hard time, and it sounds really like I need to give myself that grace, like a meltdown, but it's someone that really is hurting. I was very hurt. I was hurting really bad. And at this time, I had finally come out of my harder time with my crisis I went through for a year. And a month later, I was asked if I could play the violin for my ward in the Christmas program, and I was happy to. But they did also say, I know you've gone through a lot lately. If you feel like you need to say no, that's okay. But I was happy to be a part of it, share my testimony with my talent, and to do something different, and to really insert myself into the ward some more, because I hadn't in a while, because I was going through a lot. And though I guess I was still on fragile ground, and that's okay. I learned, and it was something very beautiful that happened. And my husband was working, and I had to go to church on my own and perform and watch my kids during the meeting, and for that whole time that my husband's working, he does shift work. So I felt very overwhelmed, and I did it in the meeting. I got through the meeting, and then of course I'm trying to go home, and my kids were crying and fighting in the backseat, even just in the church parking lot. And I think just all that release of energy that I had done that solo, and hearing my kids fighting so much, and I just overwhelmed by life. I was getting better, but I remember actually my brain got fuzzy, and I remember as I'm trying to drive out of the church parking lot, I just drifted to the side. My mind was really fuzzy, and I remember just going. I just had my foot straight on the pedal, like I didn't even put it in park, but I'm just sitting there and I'm sobbing, and because my kids are pretty little, they're like 6, like 3 and 1 at the time, and they're just fighting in the back seat, and I'm like, we haven't even left the church parking lot. How am I going to handle the rest of the stay home? And with doing that solo, I was so overwhelmed. But I remember I felt like angels came and just helped me, of course, and it was a little embarrassing. And what I could remember, just and having that panic attack, that people were wanting to help me. They saw that I was struggling and I was hurting, and they opened up the door. They came in and said, it's okay, gave me a hug. It makes me teary-eyed to think about it, because this is Zion. They were so kind. They were patient with me, and they said, let us take your kids, and we'll take care of them. You go and take a nap. You go and take care of yourself for several hours, whatever you need. And I did, and I was very grateful. But I've always remembered that being a moment in my brain of what Zion is like. It doesn't always have to be sad, but for that moment, them pinpointing out who really needed that help, I felt that. And giving back, I had given and done my solo, but someone had to come in and help me. So then recently, about 3 or 4 months ago, a little bit of a lesser example, but still nonetheless, having somewhat of a meltdown, and me knowing exactly what I need to do in my own discreet way, putting myself somewhere to get myself better. We were at a camping trip with some of my husband's work people. Not necessarily my favorite trip to go on, but I did go, and there was a lot of commotion going on. It was later at night, one of these moments later at night, and I wasn't I was excited to go home. It wasn't my favorite, like I said, and it was the last night before we were gonna go home, and kids are just crying and screaming, and everyone has their own ideas, and they all want to do these night games, and my kids, being probably malnourished with cooking as we're camping and not getting a lot of sleep, they were just at me with all their questions, and trying to figure it out with getting the night games done, and all the other kids having these big ideas of what they want to do, and there was some contention going on, even I feel like, between some of the people. You could just feel it, like but then the kids were trying to have fun, and I was too, but I just realized I gotta take a break. I gotta go to the tent. I am going to melt down. I can't do this. But I felt like I've mentioned in previous like discussions here, that with being a highly sensitive person, that I am built wrong. Like there's something wrong with me, or me even seeing myself cry here and like being like, stop crying. I need to just accept it. And so, and I've been trying to tell myself over and over, and have for years, like, my emotional bandwidth I have is very strong, and that's a talent. And it's just Satan telling me that I am unlovable, and I'm worthless for being like this, and that there's only one way to be successful and good and be seen in this world, and that's to be a stoic person, I guess. I don't know. He tells everyone differently. Like, some people that are on the other side of it feel like, why don't I feel anything? Why don't I have big emotions? And maybe that's not their skill set, and that's okay. So I digress, but back to that panic attack. I did put myself into the tent, and I did take it easy. I had called my husband. He was somewhere else on the campground. I called him, like, I really need you. I gotta go take a break, and I'm struggling for a second. And he just kind of knew, like, it's okay. And I'm very grateful for him to help out. And though when I was over there, I was in the tent, and I was just thinking, I can quickly just go to my phone and just scroll. I could quickly just like go eat chocolate in my tent. I had the strong impression, I have done this before, but it has escaped me. I haven't done it for like 6 or 7 months. And when I would go through maybe something I just really couldn't manage anymore, and I just really needed to distract myself with some peace and love in the spirit, I looked up slideshow of Jesus Christ on YouTube and just watch that. And I just look into those pictures and I hear that music and I think of him and I try to draw on his strength and I just give my heart to him in that moment, help me get through. And as I was sitting there watching them, like I could hear everyone still out there. It's not as crazy right there. And I could just tell people were kind of frustrated. Things were going on a little bit, but I can make it through because he's right here with me. And it's a really great tool. Our phones, our technology is a really great tool for that. And you maybe use that for yourself at some point. I'm gonna go get a Kleenex and still talk to you guys, but I feel like that's something we're all dealing with. Everyone has their own, there's my pantry. Everyone has their own things that they're going through, and recently there's been a little bit more drama in other ways that I'll mention at maybe some other time as it starts to resolve itself. But that's kind of what I was thinking in my heart, is now that I go through these hard things, I have recently, here, my garage door is a little loud, but I'll try and talk to you. I have had this overwhelming feeling. I feel like what I've gone through a little bit lately is I feel like I have been misunderstood and I've been saddened that I'm not able to build Zion in the ways I would like around here sometimes. And I had this feeling and I felt alone, I felt sad with this particular experience. And I was thinking though, and it opened my heart to greater compassion and led me to some forgiveness in my heart. But the love was mainly what came over me, and just thinking about how now that I feel that feeling of being betrayed or saddened or left behind or not considered, or all these are all very real feelings that we go through. I could just tell as I was walking around somewhere after I was trying to contemplate this, that all these people around me have felt that too. And I want to relieve their suffering, help them feel better, because I know how that feels. And it opened up my heart to greater love. And I'm really grateful for my Savior giving me that, because it's a gift from him. He's the only one that gives us that greater love. There's no other good fruits in this world but by him. All good things come in and of him, in and through him. And I'm just so grateful. Like, love is the best feeling. And my kids and I were I've been trying to do a little bit of gospel principles. If you want to really teach your kids something really concise and just the principles of the gospel really well, that gospel principles manual is amazing. I started it from the forward last school year. Now I'm starting from the backwards this year. So at the end of this manual is like the millennium, the final judgment. So the second coming. And so we were on the part of the millennium. We had gotten at that point. And it said in the millennium is a time of peace, love, and joy. And just hit me with a ton of bricks, as I love to look for the things of Zion related and the good times ahead. Doing what we can now. And it's those three nouns, which can also be adjectives, I guess, too, is that those are the best feelings in the world. You can't come up with better feelings than that. Joy isn't, of course, and joy especially is the idea that I think takes over the feeling of, well, maybe you're not happy, but you have joy. Because sometimes it's not always that you're just happy, but you have joy. Like a great example is with children. You are so overwhelmed and you may have just like little ones everywhere, or your big ones, and they're just bossy and hard to handle, whatever. But you feel this feeling in your heart that you have joy. And that is a fruit of the Spirit. And especially with this idea of hope in Zion, I truly do have a hope for it. And as I had talked about before, just seeing even the most important part is really imagining and knowing and feeling that your Savior will be there with you someday. Most importantly is that experience of really making it so strong in your brain that someday it'll come true and you'll be able to see him and meet him and believe that he will be by your side. Secondly, this idea and this hope so strongly enough that Zion will be here. I just believe it so strongly it can't be contained in my brain. That even though hard things happen amongst people, it can happen still. So that's part of what I'm hoping to, I better go over here. That's what I'm hoping to build with my family and with my neighborhood, and that's why I'm here. And it's as I'll go into this next, I'll talk about this idea of our culture, trying to understand that some of these things aren't normal, and as you understand what's not normal, then you're able to then realize, okay, now I look like a little kid. That's okay. I'll just kneel down and talk a little bit, but a little bit more on this and then wrap up. But I watched this podcast recently where this guy had talked about, the main thing that stuck out to me is not normal for a stay-at-home mom or mothers and people to be at home by themselves all the time. It's not normal. And this guy talked about it as almost like as if we were God to look over and see how mankind has played out and the wars that have happened and the effects that it has made on society and on people, and how we're dealing with it, and the consumerism and the industrialization. So let me go to the beginning. He talked about like in 1900, we were still living in this, my son's home. So, hello. In the 1900s, we were living in what they call a kin and kith network. And that's what you can think of in 1900, like 1900. If you really lived at that time, and you can see it, it's really, you lived in farming communities and you are working closely with your family and friends, and the people that you know are just this network, people that you just always know. And you have such an amazing, good network. Hopefully, most of the time, that's how communities thrived, right? I want to say it was perfect then, but you had, at least in a women's context, for women, you had a plethora of people to access and get that help from. And grandmas, cousins, great aunts, and you were all nearby, so you all knew each other, and they saw you grow up, and you were even not, there sometimes were matchmakers, and that's what he said is the best form of matchmaking, is that it's within your own networks, that these family members set you up with someone they know because they trust them, because they know them and they've grown up with them maybe, and that their own network of people then knows your network, and like it's already been filtered. And if they do anything wrong, they're not gonna live to see the day that they're gonna they're gonna have to deal with it, like those bad consequences. So I feel like marriages could probably work better that way. Yeah, it was so interesting to him talk about it this way, and that the wars happened, and that's what he mainly had talked about. The wars had happened, and it took many men away from families and women. It tore the seams of culture and society, and the heartache and the PTSD and the hardship of just millions of people dying and having to deal with that kind of shock and trauma. And coming to the 50s, where the 50s was almost like he said, an over response to it all. Like, we're gonna really try to make this good and perfect and really be there for our family, make it perfect, be at home. And I've always kind of thought, like, the 1950s, it would have been great to live at that time. Like, I have the cute home, I can be with my family. And I do love the idea of being kind to your husband and serving and like, this is the greatest work we could do in our home, right? But he just talked about it actually was not helpful. That's when the depression started to rise, because it was then people started to go into suburbs and they started living in these homes. I think he tooted. You're funny. And they just, when you're closer together, you kind of want to have a little bit of space, and then you're just, it just ended up being that women were at home and more alone more often. If you've ever seen the movie The Help, that kind of like shows that. And it's just not normal. And not having that whole, the whole group of people that you have around you. Hi, I'll be done in a second. Okay. And so that's mainly what I was kind of getting at, is this idea. I think he wants out. You want to go see him? Here goes you. So, yeah, it's the reason it just really struck to me that it's true. Like, this isn't normal, and that's why we're not connecting. Is we just have come up with this idea like it's okay to just not create these strong networks, and they need to be. And I have a feeling that at some point we will get back to that, and we have to. Like, how else is society going to bring themselves to their knees in order to really break down the strong differences and the heartaches, unless you really have to, and you have to love each other and just survive and deal through the tribulations of what that will come probably before Christ comes. So that's part of it, is it's going to be cool. I look forward to those times. And like I mentioned before, it's hard because I don't live in that kind of situation. And I at least I used to. And I had that at one point when I was a kid, where I had these stronger networks of people that I knew. And it does sadden me. And maybe as you can see it too, it saddens many people that this is what we're coming to. We're 2025. You'd think like we'd be this far ahead in our society that we still don't understand actually the building blocks that make life wonderful and good. And that is to be together in groups in society and love each other and support and really honor like families. And my husband and I kind of talked about this, how it's kind of frustrating how our society has gotten to. I love dogs. I have a dog. It's just, he's kind of noticed like people will get really excited about other people's dogs and be like, oh, I love it, the dog. But there are kids here, like, and we don't like go in and ask like, okay, what's your name? And of course people do, but he's noticed that sometimes with certain people, like it, and it's becoming more frequent that it's the kids are not being like loved and like paid attention to, in the sense that that's how we bond, is like, let me get to know your family, let me get to know your kids and love on you guys. And we should do the same, of course. And I know that's a way to build light, and it just felt right in the way he talked about it. So if you want to watch that podcast, it is on the Lila Rose show, Lila Rose YouTube channel. And it's with this guy, his name is Attachment Adam. And it was maybe happened just like a couple weeks ago. It's not too far away. So that's kind of what I was thinking about for our own culture today, that let's hope for that. Let's make that a thing. And a couple other things I want to talk about though, in our community, as I've noticed, we had recently, and if you haven't already heard or noted or heard on the news, it's not very often that this happens, and it's actually not in my small town, but the bigger town that I claim and I go shop at, it happened there. It's like within the full 15 minutes of this area, of this little valley I'm in, that there were two police officers that were shot and killed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And you could tell it sent shockwaves through this community. And especially because it's never happened before, and it's 2 of them. And it happened the Sunday night before our Fair Week. And Fair Week here in our community is like really a big deal. I mean, not for everyone, but for a lot of people. And I've just been actually really impressed by it. And it kind of has this cool, fun feeling of like, everyone's going to the fair. Like, let's go be a part of it. Let's go volunteer. Let's go see people. Let's go buy their stuff at their booth. And I have friends that were there doing that. And it's a cool thing to look forward to. And people entering in their things into the fair and seeing how they do. And my kids did, I did. So, and we'd been preparing for that all summer. We were in the 4-H program. I want to say it was my favorite thing, but we did do it. Maybe it was just something I need to figure out, but, and we went to the procession though, the next day after they had passed away, we went to the procession. And with my husband being a firefighter as well, it just being also one of those people that are out being a public servant too, like these things could happen to him. And, he was actually, on a call. My husband is a part of the volunteer for our town. It's not his actual job. He goes to another job. But the volunteer, he was on a call the very moment he had found out about it with the text thread or the notification coming up through the app. And especially since he gets those sorts of alerts quicker than everyone, since he does get these alerts to go on calls, that it had said that there were 2 fallen officers. And or one's fallen officer, and they were verifying if something else had happened. And he was actually working on this diabetic lady while he was doing it with this lady that her husband is a cop for that same department. So she got it, and they both got the ding, and they both looked at their phones. They both looked at each other, and you could just tell he said you could tell in her face, like it doesn't say who it was. So he said, get out of there. And so she got out of there to see if it was him, and it wasn't him. And I'm so grateful it wasn't. But of course, it's not great to have anyone pass away, especially in the line of duty like that. It's just been really devastating to hear and see. And I just feel like there are these patterns in life. Like I notice patterns. And one pattern being, and maybe you had heard, especially for Utah, you also probably heard of the news last year or just within this year, that there were also 2 other people that were actually not heroes. So they were the opposite of the heroes that were arrested after doing many, many terrible things in our community. One being a judge and one being a fire chief. And they were just, what they did were just terrible things involving children, involving just bad things. So it just made me think, like, there are these patterns, that there are these scumbag people, 2 of them in our community. Then just months later, 2 heroes. You know, the difference, the opposition in all things, it just really kind of blew my mind. And that was a huge public eye on our community for that, and a huge public eye on our community for this. And it's just been really interesting how that works. And so I thought I'd mention that as you're looking for those patterns, that can help us in these times ahead. It's just kind of understanding that there are the forces at play. There's God's amazing, wonderful force of light and goodness that's going to help all things be brought to light and finally have Christ come. And then Satan, of course, is doing his darndest to just make it not and do all the terrible things in people to follow him. So thank you for listening today. It was kind of a lot, and there's a lot that's going on, but these are important times. And so I hope you're watching, listening, paying attention, doing your best to share goodness and light. And I hope my stories help a little bit. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time. I'll try and show up a little bit more often next time. All right, well, take care. Bye.